announcements that I want to make, and then Anurag is going to do a teaching today on some really interesting insights that he had personally, but then share it with the group in the context of a couple different principles that are continuing the conversation around, or that we've been having around, sort of softening up the mind and preparing it for what we want to do together collectively as a community in 2019. So just a reminder, we do have a workshop next week as well. We projected that a lot of people may not show up today because it's so close to the holidays, but as we stated, Anurag and I, in that post, if you had a chance to watch the video post that we put out a couple days ago, life doesn't stop just because holidays come, right? Like, who you're being in the world doesn't change, or shouldn't, just because the holidays come. And again, it kind of gets to the point, which I'm sure Anurag will reiterate in his talk this morning, about like just telling the truth to what you're really committed to, right? And we really are, as we stated on the video, and I'll just state it again, like, this is an experiment, guys. This is a prototype of something that we want to create for humanity. And what we want to create with it is the solution to all of the lies that people tell themselves, which that solution means that we have to be in constant and perpetual dialogue with each other, and encouraging each other and keeping each other accountable and pushing the edge of what's possible. So we want to create a context and environment where that can happen. We want to create an answer to the $100 billion self-help industry that continues to just pump out content that changes virtually no lives, or very few. Not because the content is problematic, but because the people have an inability to implement the content. And on that note, I just want to re-emphasize what you're participating in. This is not a self-help program. There are plenty of those. This is the operating system. What we're prototyping is the operating system of what it would take to actually alter human nature, so that you could actually be who you say you are and do the things you say you're committed to in this world. So like, just like a computer has an operating system that operates all of the applications that run, that you're present to and see, consider that you're an interface. What I see when I talk with you is like me, no different than me looking at the computer interface. But the operating system I can't see is what's running you. And you can't see it either, because you become so accustomed to it and almost numb to it that it no longer exists. It's like the water to the fish in the fishbowl. Fish is like what water? Like, it just is the environment in which they're existing. In 2019, we're going to do a lot of work on architecture and environment that will speak to some of this. So consider that what we're prototyping is hacking our own operating systems and doing it in the context of community, so that we can all accomplish what we say we're committed to. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, I've been tangentially involved in the personal growth and self-help space at the highest levels, but I say tangentially because I've always had one foot out of it, because it always felt gross to me on some level, to be completely transparent. It always felt like, I was watching people, giving great advice in many cases, but the whole sort of sell at the back of the room, get people to mortgage their house to go to the next level, to the next level, to the next level, without having delivered virtually any value or shift in that person's life for what they've already paid for, just made me really sick to my stomach. And any of the authors and speakers you could think of, you probably read their books. I mean, those were some of the people I was working with at one point in time. Not to say that, they're all like that, but that industry really exists and stands on the shoulders of the failure of people to be able to execute. And what Anurag and James and I have had just tons of discussion around is like, why is this the case? And why is no one doing anything about this? Why are we just continuing to allow people to spend money on things that don't actually move the needle and alter their existence? Like, it just seems like a waste of time, and certainly a waste of money. So So you're all on the ground floor with us, prototyping this out. And I want to thank Anya for some comments that she made a couple of days ago, encouraging us, which was always our intention for the record, but us to start sharing more sooner than we were going to start when the Being experiment kicked off on January 6th. So I did a post this morning sharing all, the areas that I'm present to where I'm full of shit right now. And the two intentions that I've discovered over 2018 that were really running my life, which was just have enough and don't disappoint. And when I saw these, it was like I could not see them everywhere, running every choice, every decision, every behavior. As a matter of fact, the most important conversations prototype is one of the practices that I've committed myself to move me into a different direction and to come from a different place and to have a different intention for my life. So so I'm living my practice right now, doing this every Sunday. It's part of what's bringing me forward, right? So, and I had a really crappy year, financially, just awful. I had two big projects that, like, I mean, when I say big, I mean like big, like would have made a lot of money, go belly up on me. And it put me in a really crappy financial situation, but that also is opportunity because it forced me outside of the things I was doing that were not aligned and were coming from don't disappoint, and has created a space for me to now look at what do I want to create coming from a new intention. An intention, I'll admit, I'm still working out as we do this work. I'm still unclear on what it is at the moment. But I know it's not don't disappoint anymore. And I know it's not just have enough. So I wanted to just share that with you as a bit of context because, like Anurag said, actually in the video, we're not just doing this because it's like a fun thing to do. I mean, it's fun, but that's not why we're doing it. We're not just doing this because, we've got nothing else we could be doing. We're doing this because it's truly aligned with our intention of the work that we're committing to the world and the outcomes that we're committing to everyone who joins and participates in this work with us. This is a community endeavor. Part of the model that we're creating, which you're only seeing surface parts of it right now. Wait till we get into 2019. We've got lots of stuff we're talking about behind the scenes and planning, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But the design of all of this, part of the design, at least from where I'm coming from, is I've observed a couple of organizations in the world that have managed to move the needle for humanity. Not as much as what's possible, but they have in some way managed to alter people's existence in a positive way. And those two are Weight Watchers and Alcoholics Anonymous. They're not perfect organizations, but the aspects of accountability, taking responsibility, doing it in the context of community, and creating a common access point for everyone have shown to work and work very well. And by the way, the personal growth and the self-help space, they don't do that, at least not regularly. There might be a few exceptions to that, but generally that's just not their business model. And I'm convinced that human beings are social by nature. And so the whole notion of self-help is sort of a misnomer. I almost think it's pretty much an impossibility because the self is the greatest deceiver, right? I mean, we tell ourselves lies all the time about what we're committed to and who we are in the world. And like, we just bullshit ourselves all the time. So how can we possibly help ourselves? It's just a lie. So knowing that that's the context, we're pioneering something very different here. And again, we encourage you to, and I think it'll really land for you when Anurag does a teaching in the new year. We haven't decided when it's going to be yet, but on architecture and environment, the idea that the people you spend your time with, the people who constitute your social circles, you are like the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? It's just like by osmosis almost. It's just like breathing the air. So you want to architect your environment. So you want to invite people to a new level. You know, Anurag on the video gave a great analogy of skiing. You know, when you're learning how to ski and you finally get to stand up, if everyone was sitting on their ass, you wouldn't have much impetus to continue standing and skiing, because there's this like pull, because we're social beings, to want to align with what others are doing around us, right? So just recognize that those things are part of your operating system, and they're the things that are keeping you from actually attaining what you want. Final note is to encourage all of you who, and this is for those who are both on the call and are going to watch the replay. If you haven't started the work, or you have started it and you haven't completed, again, I really encourage you to get that done before New Year, because the pace and the energy and the expectation is going to shift markedly as of January 6th. And we're already kind of teasing you a little bit with what that's going to look like. It's going to be unacceptable to not do the work, only because we're standing for you. You said you want to do this. You've got things in your life you want to alter. So we're going to hold you to that, and we're going to hold ourselves to that, and you're going to hold us to that, right? I think that we can create a community that is so transformative by nature, that once we kind of figure out the pioneering things we're doing right now, I would be, you know, and we've got some really great things planned to spread the word of the work that we're doing also in 2019. This should shift the expectation that people have for work to transform their lives. It will no longer be acceptable to go to a conference and sit at the back of the room passively and do nothing and just spend gobs of money and get nothing for it. Like that's the flag we're planting in the ground here. Okay. So with that, I'm going to open it up to Anurag, who's going to give a teaching. And again, if you have comments, Anurag, do you want them to save their comments to the end, or do you want me to interrupt you if someone has a comment?
In this one, it's open, so people can step in. Yeah, this doesn't have to be a
okay. So if you want to speak, just text in the chat that you want to speak, and I'll unmute you, and then we'll open it up for the workshop portion at the end. So Anurag, take it away.
All right, and from what arose in when I watched the replay of the last one, which I was not on because I was too sick, and then some of the current dialogue, I'm going to open with something else and then move into the other stuff we talked about, Chad, because it's appropriate.
Yep.
So, you were engaging in it. Aurora, you were asking about it and that thing. So with this caveat that it's important not to get fascinated by the default intention. And I'll say what, because what I learned is, after doing a lot of work with it, it helps the people understand that they're there, the defaults, but the real work is in creating a new one to come from, to live aligned to. So the awareness of the old one doesn't make any difference. What matters is the alignment to that which is true to you. However, to add some insight, because I had this experience in my life, I did things like when I was in university working 2 jobs, then I started this business and had a little, then I really built the business very quickly and had a lot. However, no matter how little or how much I made, I always seemed to have to be just getting by. It was like this bizarre thing, right? It was this bizarre thing. And like my business took off, it was extremely crazy. And it was like, it really didn't matter, or I could be making so little, but still always just getting by, right? Anyways, the bottom line was, when I was 4, my family moved from India to Canada. My parents spent all their money getting to Canada. We were quite poor, I guess, to begin with. And I remember actually walking back from the plaza with my dad, like I'd wanted something. I can't remember what exactly, but what I remember him telling me, that he said, son, money is not important. What's important is your family, and what's important is people. That's what he said. That's what he said. Now, another thing that was going on in the background was, as we moved to Canada, I didn't speak English. There's actually no other colored kids in my school. I was in a world of desperate to fit in, right? So doing anything to look like a good person and fit in and everything like that. So my father said money's not important, family and people are. What I made that mean in my mind was, therefore you're a bad person if you care about money. Now, he didn't say that. He just said it's one. But I made, and I'm desperate to look as a good person. So the intention that I started to live from was absolutely must not appear that I care about money. That it must not appear. So guess what? I'm an effective human being. Chad, you're effective human being, or you're effective human being, and whatever it is, though. And if we have not enough, boom, we will do shit and we'll have enough. But as soon as you get to enough, in my world, and this is what happened in mine, I must not be seen to care about money because I'm a bad person, then I would start doing work for free. I would start giving money away. I would start, being really lax with agreements and contracts and stuff like that. And if I got below enough, I'd work hard to get back to enough. As soon as I had enough, I would, again, start to give stuff away. You guys get what I'm saying? It was completely unconscious to me, but when I look back at it after seeing it, it was like, it was so precise, it was ridiculous. Like precise, right? And so it was like in every action and everything was that, and then even this and how I gave it away, like, just to be liked. But every action, all my ups and downs with money, all of that fit that intention perfectly to a T. Now, one of the things when I first dug into the default intention thing, it started to create openings. Then I watched this one pitfall, which again, Jay, we go back into this entire world. I've worked in that transpersonal self-development work for 25 years. And one of my frustrations has been, and I really look at avoiding creating too much jargon and things like that, is that if you don't have the intention to move forward, then what you do is you use the distinction as a new excuse. So after when I started to go broader with it, people would go, they wouldn't alter their behavior. They would go, oh, that was my default intention. They just have a more enlightened excuse. They feel better because they have an explanation, which was not the purpose or the intention. So I want us to be dealing at a high level, at a maturity here. So I'm just putting that, I do want to be able to give people the access that default intention does make available, but not turn it into, you get what I mean, right? Yeah. But that's an example of life lining up with your intention. Like if, for instance, in the world of money, and that changed a lot for me. And then to that, I'm going to add one other thing. Chad, this is for you. This is for some of the people that are in my crew who've been going through things like this, and then others. If you take this on, this might be coming soon to a life near you. So what is it, 2018? Yes, so a little over 2 years ago. So in 2016, I had, like Chad, without fail, the toughest year of my life. And everybody, this is important. You have to be, at least in our teaching, you got to be responsible for things. So when you learn a teaching, the default intention, like that, none of it's the truth. It's a way of looking at things, and you have to choose how to apply it. You don't, if you make it into a hard and fast rule and make everything black and white, it's not going to work, because then you're putting the responsibility on the concept. The responsibility is with you. So, and say this, Chad, because I struggled a little bit where I had also, in part of 2016 being rough was financial, but I'd already had the breakthrough financially. But sometimes there's just an adjustment. Sometimes it's your intention. Sometimes there's actually something else going on. And I tell people, everything is your intention. People are like, I didn't intend to have a flat tire. Maybe, maybe not. But let's even say that you didn't intend it. But if you still have it 3 days later, then it is your intention to have one. Now, I could even go back. I don't have the time. I'm not going to do it here to say, here's why you had the flat tire, how you did intend it, even how you had the financial breakdown. But let me just share it, which is, because then actually this part does segue into what we're talking about. And it's kind of funny because I suddenly, what we want to get into this today is, I think, the most important foundational work. And it's on the day that we already expected the least attendance. So it's funny. But I would say it's people's intention to avoid this dialogue. But anyways, in 2016, it started with my mother, who's a caregiver for my father, not being able to walk and then having to go for knee replacement surgery. I flew from Western Canada to Eastern, took care of my mom, went also with my fiance. We took care of before, during, after this surgery. After that, went home. My sister took over, then my sister went back to India, then we came back, and a few days after we got back, my father collapsed. Then my father was hospitalized for weeks, and I was morning till night in the hospital every single day, which, by the way, was its own powerful thing, because at some point I started taking care of him, and I even told the nurses, no, I even cleaned him, and it was like such a confront, and then it was such a miracle to do it all the way around. Take care of my dad. Then he got better. Went back to Vancouver, and then 3 days after I got home, he passed away. And then went back, took care of the funeral and everything, came back home, and then suddenly my mom couldn't move at all. She had a fractured vertebrae. I started reducing my business so I could take care of my family. Then I got this one contract, which I handled all my finances for the year. I worked on it for months, and then one of the guys involved embezzled all the money, took it to China, and exited money for the year. Trail running in the woods, wiped out, destroyed my shoulder, couldn't use my right arm for months. And then things blew up with my fiance. We fought, she left. Then my uncle died. And I was like, I think I'm done with this year. Now, it's actually, it's funny, I chat, and everybody will get this as I talk about the next thing that just happened to me a few weeks ago. It's actually a version of the same thing. I was actually being cleansed of all my attachments. In retrospect, when I look back, you can say it happened, and then what I created with it, you could say, but I could see at a very core soul level, all of that was consistent with an intention of moving to what was the next space that allows this work to arise. All of those structures, all the business things I parted with my business partner, with this, with that, anything that truly, when you say the 5 people that you're hanging out with, like literally everything, right? I even, halfway through that year, had resigned from a client because they just weren't doing the work. And then they begged me to stay, right? And then toward the end of the year, they let me go. And then I was kind of pissed. I go, wait a minute. Is that just because they broke up with me when I was trying to break up with them? Right? But the thing was, I saw the inconsistency 6 months earlier. And then I let myself get, you get what I'm saying? Like, it just, so I totally see that year as a cleanse, and even this, and even the financial, like there was just stuff that was easy to keep doing, but it wasn't aligned.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So at the level of deep intention, actually, it quite likely your very soul intended all of this, because up here, the still indulgent self would keep the easy stuff around. You guys get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you stand true, man, shit is going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the guts to do it, if you're playing this game, the universe will do it for you. I promise that 100%.
Mm-hmm. Anurag, one interjection there. Creating is messy. Consuming is clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I made the shift to start creating,
yeah,
that's when shit started to fall apart.
Yeah. Creating is all uncertainty. Consuming is all the certainty. We forget that everything we take for granted today, or most things, was invented by a crazy person. Mm-hmm. Right? I want to open a school for the criminally insane, right? Because like the light bulb, the airplane, people, like a few people thought that was cool, but most of the population, because the idea of flight didn't even exist, didn't go, wow, look at those brilliant guys throwing themselves off cliffs. They're like so smart. Like that, you guys get what I'm talking? That's not the thought.
Yeah.
But crazy people invented all the cool stuff they're creating, and it was messy. Keep crashing. It was messy. It was messy. It was messy. And then the other part is, I look at, let's say, I speak for myself, look at people that I look at, admire, it's like, who stood for something, like Joan of Arc over here, or Gandhi, or Mandela, or Martin Luther King. Every one of them went to jail, was burned at the stake, right? They're all fucking criminals. So the criminally insane. So we want to bring those together. The crazy ones who invented stuff and the criminals who went to jail for what they believe, right? And fight like that. And you bring that together, and the next level is upon us, is from my perspective. So, um, guys, and this maps onto the other discussion that will have about attachments. The cleansing of attachments, and then if you're going to true up, you either will release them or they will be pulled away from you, and you will deal with some discomfort and you will deal with some disruption. But how the very logic of it is, how are you going to have a new reality if you don't disrupt this one? Right. So, anyway, for what it's worth, around that, Chad, and also everybody, and it's like, man, take a fire hose to it all, right? Mm-hmm. And then keep what's true, bring or restore what's true, and you will be so free. And I let everything go, and I was holding on to finances and the reserve that I have that was living off of because of that thing, and it was running low, and I was like this, and then my ex wanted money, and my business, and I did the opposite. I gave my business partner, I said, all the money in your business account, Nick, take it, go. I said, well, Nina, all the money, fine, here, personal, go. So I was left with nothing except some credit card debt, and I felt so freaking good. And I got rid of everybody except one client, Fernando, who I love to death, and he's completely aligned with our purpose. Mm. And then suddenly suddenly somebody else called, and it added another thing, and then I have like literally just enough. Mm. And the part that you posted about how we changed when agriculture came, and we stopped living off the land. Mm-hmm. So I reduced myself to zero, actually negative, worked my way back up to a zero net worth, and then keeping myself at zero, and I earned just enough to do what I need to do, and I decline everything else. And it keeps me awake, it keeps me present, and I'm literally, and part of what I'm about to say is that the way that we used to live, we can still live in the urban world, and I'm living off the urban land. Mm-hmm. So, for what that's worth. Right?
It's worth a lot if people really let it sit in. And I agree with you, Anurag. The intention from where I'm coming from is precisely why everything has crumbled over the last 5 or 6 months. Like all these big contracts that I've been working on for years, waiting for the payout, all this stuff, right? Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
And I see that because when I hear where you're coming from, it's like, and I had a bunch of those inherited things, and I've done this, and I've been working at Honeywell and this and that. It doesn't matter.
No.
I had to deal with it. If I'm actually going to fulfill what I say I'm here for, I won't spend any time on those things.
Right.
And not even as but not because they're bad or this or that. It's just not aligned.
Yep. Aurora just asked, living off the urban land. I want to hear more about that at some point.
Yeah. It's something I'll get into a bit more into the next year. But or it's like it literally is, when you live off the land, you just hunt and gather only what you need. You don't accumulate more than maybe a day's worth or whatever. And then you keep living it. So I literally earn only what I need to do what I need to do each month, and I accumulate nothing on purpose. It's actually an architecture and an environment to keep me living in the way that I want to be living and keep me pure and keep me present. I can never get complacent. I can never go to consuming, because if I go to consuming for a bit, I run out. Mm-hmm. It's a very intentional phenomena, and it comes from something I'll discuss in January about the trust of self. The trust of self is the most foundational element of what I'm working from, because the person who's lived off the land trusts themselves. They don't need to accumulate. There's no fear because they know tomorrow. They trust their ability, right? And everybody here, if I took everything away from you and every penny away from you, you don't have to have fear. If you trusted yourself, you wouldn't care, because you knew that you'd get up tomorrow and you do what needed to do. But we'll dig into it some more in January. But it's living off the land, which can even be done in the urban environment, and the sense that it will bring to you. You have an opportunity to become fearless, because if you do it, you don't even have to do it forever. Just do it for some months. Get your own ability to do so. And then you will stop being afraid of losing things, because you already know you can survive losing everything. And that changes from the consuming to creating. It changes from I'm trying to avoid this thing happening to I'm creating this thing happen. James, would you add anything so far?
No, I love where you're going with this, though.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything to add.
So, guys, so one of the things a few weeks ago was like possibly that I think the most sick I've ever been, for 10, 12 days. And it coming out of the Sierra Nevada to Santa Marta in Colombia, where I've been doing some work, which is also known as the heart of the planet. And my time and experience there, which I didn't even know it existed a year ago. A year ago, right now, I was there for the first time, and I was called there. And I surrendered my life to the service of the earth. And I had the most amazing experience that I would not, if somebody else had written it, I would have maybe disbelieved it. And it started off with 10 months before I was there. I was in the jungles of Mexico doing an ayahuasca ceremony. And Earth Mother said, okay, you've serviced me. I'm taking you to my heart. And I went to a hill that was pulsing like a heart, but it was just a hill. And I thought, that's so weird. I stared at it all night. Jump ahead 10 months. I come out of these huts and I look, and behind the huts of where I'm staying in the Sierra, there's this hill, and it's exactly the hill from my vision from 10 months ago. And they say, this is the heart of the planet. I'm like, holy shit, right? Stand up and take notice. And of course I'm like going blah, 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 blah. And when I finally share what happened, they're just looking at me like this going, welcome back. That was the only thing they said. They said normal for them, right? 2 days later, we go and meditate on a hill. They say this hill has this energy. You may feel the energy. You may feel some nausea. And they said sacred hill. I'm like, yeah, I'll say that. Went meditated on the hill. 5 minutes later, I was running to the side and I was throwing up. I was purging as if I'd done an ayahuasca or something, but just energy, just cleaning me out. A few days later, go to a river to do a ceremony. The water's freezing cold off the mountain. Get in. I think I'm going to have to get right out. The moment I get in, you don't want to get out. You can't feel the temperature. All you feel is life coursing through you. And as soon as you get out, you want to get back in. I could go on some more, but this truly is a land that's amazing. And I've taken on an initiative to preserve it, save it, and unite the tribes that are on it. And then jump ahead to just a few weeks ago. I was just there. And it's happened more than once. Like I feel Earth Mother coming through and cleaning me out. And I was really sick. But then this stuff happened. Like I started to just throw up and burst, but it was not normal. And I actually saw like throwing up like a resentment that I'd been holding on to, like like an anger, like darkness, like dark spirit. And the thing about it is getting at a whole nother level where I was like full of shit, like stuff that I've been putting up with. It's another level of cleanse, like from 2 years ago, 2 and 3 years ago, which is like, I go, wow, like I talk about this and having complete peace and love, with everything from the past. Oh, look there's this one thing where these people totally screwed me over. And I could see like holding on to that anger and resentment, like what it does. I could see the darkness of it. I could see it. But, and then, and other things and other upsets, other place where I let love not be there. And I'd gotten, in my June trip there, I got this very clear thing about the next place I was full of shit I need to deal with, which is many years ago, I moved from the space of, judgment to like no judgment. Like I could say, I have my opinions about Trump or this, that, but it's fine. Them or whatever, somebody doing some bad stuff, and moved to a space of intellectually having no judgment. But the stuff that I practice, teach, read, whatever, it's also, the whole thing is we are one and this and love and compassion. And I go, oh my God. So the next place was, once I moved from judgment to a kind of a neutralness, that was a big leap forward. But I've been sitting there for a long time. And now that's become an intellectual superiority. The next thing is, what does it take to experience the love for everybody? Experience the love that I have for you, Petra, to be able to experience that same level of love for Trump or somebody else that I don't, you know what I'm saying? And I really read, and I was reading about these saints who, they literally experience everybody as a child of God and love them like no matter, right? And do you have to do that? No, but it is a place from which I intend to work and teach, yeah? So therefore, I got to deal with where I'm full of shit about that. And I saw like each of these things like just like coming out. And as they did, at least love restored to these people who like, they did this business thing with my money, but it doesn't actually matter because you know who they were, like why I even started working with them is I thought they're amazing guys. And I may not choose to do things the way they do, but the other thing that I saw so clearly, every one of those things is my own integrity that I stepped over. If I'd been impeccable with my integrity, I never would have had the situation where that happened. That if I'd been impeccable, if I hadn't stepped over stuff, the situation where that happened never would have arose. It was only an attachment on my part that let me keep going when I should not have. So one, they're not responsible. Two, I actually can't generate an experience of love. And as I started to do that, I started to look, oh man, I've got this thing I've been saying a year and a half ago. I lost my bookkeeper, and I'm like, I kept saying I got to handle that, and I haven't handled it, and now it's starting to eat at me a little bit. And it was like, and I kept putting, now I'm going to go do that. This thing with my taxes. Oh, I've got some stuff sitting at a friend's place and stuff lying around, and that Nick put in storage in Vancouver. And I just started this cascade of shit that's out. Right? Where it was like, she was like, okay, for you to go into what we're about to go into next year, things have to be pristine. And so two really powerful things came out of that illness. It's like, I saw all the places I was full of shit, and then I saw that I was full of shit because I use the level that I'm working at and the difference I'm making to excuse not handling where I'm full of shit. Which is, of course, even worse given what this is about and the integrity of it. So it just doubles up on the impact, right? Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's as simple as today I was going through emails and hitting unsubscribe on a bunch of emails that are just like, I keep getting them and just deleting them and deleting them. And I'm cleaning out files. You get what I'm saying? Like, do you know that every bit of that stuff eats at us? It clogs the flow. So I'm literally going, boom, unsubscribe, like this, clean, right? And then the other thing that was just, as all of that stuff, the idea of that being clean, and one of the things I've been so committed to is what's a distillation of all of these different works and stuff like that. And and the last thing that came was, you have to get out of mind and judgment and go to your heart. And this is the conclusion. I want to create a challenge. The do the right thing every moment challenge. Do the right thing every moment challenge. I'll say it again. Do the right thing every moment. And it could be including put that plate away, or it could be like say no to that $1 million contract, or like everything, right? Be loving instead of reactive over this holiday. See, I actually got, oh my God, we have a choice every second. And I mean, in the right thing, just what's in you and your heart, it's different for different people, but listen, it's not the thing that you do that messes you up. It's when you do something that is not the right thing for you. Right? It's just whatever that is. Like I find it funny. People say, oh, you're a good son. You take care of your mother and stuff like that. And I'm going for, to take her for a month in India in a few weeks and stuff. I know some people, they don't do that, and that's not a problem. For me, it would be a problem to not take care of her. Do you get what I'm saying? It just would be a problem. Me and my sister decided one of us will always be with her until the end. So I'm not saying you should do that. I just know that I couldn't not do that. So the thing is, and I can tell you this, and by the way, if doing the right thing every moment will also lead into some of the kind of breakdowns Chad just had. Because your attachments to keeping things comfortable will have you sell out on doing the right thing now. Sometimes what I say is, imagine you're a character in a movie and you're watching yourself in the movie. What would you cheer for you to do? You know what I'm saying? We cheer like, oh yeah, do this, tell the truth, quit, whatever, right? But you have that ability. This could be everything, like everything. If you would just do the right thing every moment. You see, the thing is, you don't have to spend time on 50 other things. You can start doing that right now. And then have compassion for yourself when you don't come back and correct it, and just keep going and build your ability and a percentage of that. And literally, my assertion is everything will sort itself out for you. I promise you, everything will sort itself out for you. Just do the right thing every moment and let that take you where it takes you.
I have a comment, Anurag, just to interject there. It's not a moral issue, everyone. This isn't a right thing from a moral standpoint, but just be aware, like just the loss of power we experience when we don't do the right thing for us makes us completely weak and sabotages the power that we have in our life and the ability to produce results in our life and in the world.
Yeah. You know, that's the important thing. You will give yourself so much freedom and power, it'll blow your mind. It just like, you know, I was talking to, a year ago when I had Stroke Powerful Insights, talking to my friend and client, Fernando. I was talking about how many things that in the business world I walked away from. You know, I walked away from doing leadership training for Coca-Cola. I walked away from things, left contracts probably cost me millions. I said, but the confidence and the peace that I got from saying no and not selling out, see, if I had those millions, I couldn't buy even a fraction of it.
Hmm.
And I'll share one story. Like about a year and a bit ago, I was working with this guy in Atlanta who had done one of my business workshops and then created a business out of it and is now living his dream life. He has his dream house, his dream car, his dream relationship. It's like everything is really nice. And he goes, okay, I don't know what's next. Now what? I'm going to make it, take it to the next level, make it do. So one of the things that came up in one of our conversations was he goes, I want integrity. I want to do our best work. And, my main client, 80% of my work, I can't do it. Like the liaison with them is so difficult. It's so all of these different things. I said, well, you need to address that. And I gave him how to start. He made no progress with this woman. So I said, okay, you committed to integrity? Yeah. Then you got to kick it up to her superior. He's like, that could be disruptive. That might cost me the contract. That might, so this exact conversation. And he was like, I said, well, Christopher, I said, so this is it. We've distinguished integrity, not selling out. And then he struggled with it. And then he suddenly was right on the edge. And I said, okay, Christopher, if you were watching yourself in a movie, what would you want to see you do? I would want to see he's like absolutely standing for integrity, no matter the cost. He's like, okay, good. He did this amazing thing. He went to his husband, they're gay, and he sat down and looked at if they lost his contract, what would that be? His husband has a good job. This is the money. They actually looked at it. It might mean they would have to sell their dream house, but maybe not. But here's the key thing. He did all the work and he got okay with it. Because he felt so incredibly free to not be trapped in hostage. Like suddenly, what's the house if you're not free, right? So he did all of that. He sat down with him. He had an incredibly responsible conversation. And he's willing, I'd rather lose a house than be alive. Amazing courage like that. And then he went and he had the conversation with that woman superior. It went so badly, right? But then he kept standing for it. And he thought, okay, they're preparing to like lose everything like that. And then it got kicked up to that person superior who went over everything. And all he said is, listen, we want to do our very best. We're not giving you what we could and stuff like that. And that woman cleaned everything up and gave him 4 more years of work. But he did not know that was going to happen. You get that?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you can't know. That's the uncertainty. That's the whole shit, Creating is a world of uncertainty. Creating, bringing into existence that which doesn't exist. That's new. Consuming is, consuming the old. So, it's my invitation is that, uh, there's three things as I really invite people to take on. Foundational before all of that is gratitude. The first thing is that creates a foundation for a really joyful existence, being so grateful for what we have. I was telling, I can't remember last week, people, I just want to hit people with a big stick, you know, like, how can you not be grateful? How can you be like for what's around you, right? Like, it's amazing. Like, we have this, we got food, we got shelter, we've got like, there's so much that, you know, and if you were so grateful, and you have to remember there are times where you had a lot less than when you do, and you had a little bit more, you were so grateful, you know, you're so happy. And and every time I feel irritated by something, I go, what is this perfect? Or what am I missing? Great. Like, and I was thinking about doing my taxes. I got really irritated. And then I meditated on it, and I realized how grateful I am for taxes. Because I get to walk out of this door, I get to walk on a road or drive on that road or go play in that park, or do you get what I'm saying? Go fly in that, like, do you know what? I would way rather, I'm happy, I'm still happy to challenge the use of the taxes being more efficient, but I would way rather pay taxes and have all of that stuff there, you know, and be able to go to the doctor and this and that, than not pay taxes and have to deal with that stuff not there. Do you guys get what I'm saying? It's somebody, there's a system that takes care of it. It's amazing what's taken care of that we take for granted. But so what's the point? The point is that I did that work, and it's like, and you know what? If you got present to what there is to be grateful for around you, you just be so freaking happy all the time. It's amazing that we focus on what we don't have. In my world, what we don't have is not real. What we have is what we have. That's real. I know you can have fun with it. But I could say, oh, well, how come you're not upset that you don't own the moon, right? How come you're not upset that you don't own a gun? Well, that's kind of a, see, the thing is, there's what you have, and then you have to make up a story about what you don't have and then suffer. But you could easily suffer about not owning the moon as you have about not owning that car. So gratefulness, not just like a little tip, like, but really look at being grateful like every day. Number two, invite you, because I'm already doing that, but now I'm taking on two other things that I'm inviting. One of them is clean up your life, like impeccable, like with a little brush like this. I'm going to do this, like that, my bookkeeping, my taxes, my storage, my this, you know, like everything, like everything. Because you know what? Actually, if you don't, everything else is bullshit to some degree. Like it's like work, you have sand in the gears and you got to push the gas pedal faster to try. I mean, harder to go a little faster, but you got all this sand in the gears. If you do nothing this year to get your life impeccable, that will take you places that trying to get places will never produce. I'll say this thing, I've done this before. I've done elements of it. What's coming in my life is like, I did it for a while and it was amazing. And then I got this distracted. And what's coming back to me right now is all the things that I've ever done that have been really effective. And then I'm not doing them full of shit. And it's like I have no more room to not do them all that way. So clean up the integrity in your life. Have everything be just as you want it. Throw that stuff out. Clean that closet. Clean up the disk space on your hard drive, right? Fix that thing. You know, stop using a thing that's not working. Whatever it is, have less, but have it be impeccable and pure and clean, right? So you clean shit up, and then the third thing is practice. Take on the do the right thing now, every moment. Do the right thing challenge. So I'm going to stop there and open it up.
Great. So questions or comments, or if you even just want to share something about how this landed for you or how it impacted you, remember that we're creating community here. So if something strikes you, you're probably not the only one. Someone might be having a similar thought and they can learn from your insight. Anurag asked me, I can't remember when we were talking about it, but you know, what is it, the teaching or is it the workshop that should be the most powerful? And really should be the workshop portion, because that's, you know, we're just laying the groundwork with the teaching. The workshop is where the conversation happens.
Yeah. For me, I would say the workshop and then the practices, and the teaching is only to generate the workshop and the practices.
Yeah. So anyone who wants to be unmuted, just type in the chat, share something that struck you, an observation you had, maybe coming clean with, you know, where you're not telling the truth to yourself, or where you could be have more gratitude. I mean, I know, oh, here's Let me see Marco here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you're unmuted.
Okay. So I can really very well follow what you said, Anurag. Thanks a lot for your input. And I I think it's normal, but still, when you have this degree of uncertainty, when you have to let go things that you think like stabilize your life,
Yeah.
It's for me, it comes to a different point because I have a family with 2 kids, and of course, that's where I say, am I now being very, sorry, I'm not native English speaker, but am I now very much in a pattern that I say, okay, now I have to think of my kids financially, blah blah. I have to look out for them, because we just moved to Portugal from Switzerland. And as you can imagine, in Switzerland, financially, you're better off than in Portugal, especially if you move to Portugal later on and have to move in and out. And still, I think like there's another space to be discovered for me. And I'm not really clear, I see, but there's this certainty.
Well, yeah, I understand that, Marco. And I'm going to do it more in depth in the new year, but I'll give you a preview of an exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an exercise in designing people not being driven by fear. And it's also to ground you in trusting yourself, 2 elements that I talked about. Just call it very simply the worst case scenario exercise. Huh? So, I think we're very disconnected from who we are. And before Chad knows this work, for me, the most powerful state is our constitution, when we are constituted as something. So let me ask you this, Marco, will your children starve?
Sorry?
Will your children starve? Would you let your children starve?
No.
No. See, you didn't even have to think. You don't even have to have a strategy. Now, if you lost everything tomorrow and had no money and stuff like that, would you let your children starve?
No.
See? Oh, look at that. But how do you know?
I'd do whatever it takes to feed them.
That's exactly it. And if you were being that powerful with everything that you were committed to, life would only go the way that you say. And you would never have to worry or be afraid. Now, that's a basis conversation, the Constitution, the trust of self. We don't exercise our full power. Now, the exercise, everybody, is the worst case scenario exercise. Is I ask people, I said, okay, well, imagine the worst case scenario. What is it you're so afraid of? And people go, well, if I do this and that, I might get fired, I might lose my business. Then what? Well, then I would do this and I would be broke, or then I would have like no money.
Sorry.
Yep. I think we lost
Important
his.
how you do this exercise. It's important how you do this exercise is in writing and in detail. So then I ask you to do this. I ask you to make a list of 20 actions you would take now if you had nothing. And people will go, oh, I would find a job. I go, no, that's not an action. I would start to go online and I would spend a few hours every day. I would call all of my friends. I would do this. I would move back to my parents' place and stay there till do you get what I'm saying? Like specific actions.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually make a list of the actions, the first 20 actions, you can go more than that, but 20 actions, and you have to think, what you would do. The specific things and actions you would do if the worst case scenario, that which you're afraid of, happened to you right now. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, an interesting thing happens. I'm going to jump ahead and give you a preview, but it's not the same as doing the exercise. With a very, very, very few exceptions. And I asked people, I said, okay, well, if you took those actions, then what? Then how long? Let's see if we can just do part of it. So if you lost everything, how long do you think before you were back on your feet? How many months to get a job or to start something? Or Worst case, how long do you think?
A year.
Okay,
Worst
great.
case.
Sure. So now, if you did all those actions, did that worst case scenario, like got back on your feet in a year, you know, maybe a little impact. By the way, one needs to know that we often act like our life is threatened when only our lifestyle is threatened. And it's two very different things. When I was coaching Chip at Lululemon, we had one of the most interesting conversations ever. He's a good man with a good heart, and he was really upset when he wanted coaching. In 2008, the market crashed. Stock value went from like $60 a share to $5 a share, and his net worth went from 1.2 billion to 200 million. And he says to me, he said, I need some coaching because I actually know I'll never spend 200 million my whole life. So why am I so stressed about all the money I just lost? Because we operate like from loss, and that our life is threatened when only our lifestyle is threatened, and all these attachments. You get that? So there you are, back on your feet in a year. Now, if you do all this work and you do it well, and maybe you'll even get it from my dialogue right now, Michael, that if you actually did it and projected where you'd be in a year, then 2 years from now, after you've done that, got back on your feet, and you've done whatever you've done, how do you think you feel in life 2 years from now after that? It's a year after you're back on your feet and stuff like that. How do you think you'd be?
Strong.
Yeah, you'll be stronger, and you'll be almost definitely happier. And I'll tell you what, I've done this work with a lot of people, and I've interviewed lots of people who've lost everything, even who have kids and everything like that. What's interesting is this: everybody on this call has learned lots of things in life. Yeah. However, we don't apply a lot of them. And part of the reason is, some of it's we're lazy, some of it is we just have a momentum, an inertia. And we keep doing what we've always been doing. Yet, if it was gone, we would do things differently. But it's not gone, so we just, kind of a little lazy about it. If you lost everything and had to start from scratch, there are things that you would do differently that are better for you, more aligned, just because you got no resistance to it. You've got no momentum of the old ways. You get that?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense, Marco?
Yeah.
So cumulatively over time, again, a couple of years, the worst case scenario leads you to a happier existence than what you have right now.
I see. I'll work on that.
Yeah. If do the exercise, allow yourself to meditate on it, understand that you've learned things and teachings and you would apply them because you're starting from scratch. It's so much easier to apply when you start from nothing than when you're trying to change something. So I invite you to dwell in that. I invite you to do the whole exercise, but like this is just me just going on the surface, right? And the key thing is trust of self. You actually have to be willing to get who you are. You would never let your children starve. Well, you could also say, I'll never let us be homeless. You could say anything and live it if you're willing. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
So that's an invitation.
Thanks.
Okay, Anurag, Rita would like to chat as well, so I'm going to unmute her.
Okay.
Rita, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Hi,
Good.
everyone. Yeah, thanks, Anurag. That was really interesting. There are two things. I had made a comment in the chat box. Sorry, you'll hear my canary singing in the background. Isn't that beautiful on a winter day? Can you hear him?
Yep.
Yeah. He reminds me of the beauty of life. But anyway, one was this idea of what I've heard referred to as the inner roommate.
Yep.
So this voice in your head that if you envisioned as a real person and you're sitting in a room, and what you would say to that person if they actually said to you what your brain is saying to you. It's
Yep.
like the movie, right? It's another analogy for the movie, like you said, about if you were in a movie. And I sometimes picture that person and it's like, get the hell out of my life, right? Like, so that was one of the things I wanted to share. But I think that one of the most helpful practices that I've been working on and struggling with, but it's been very helpful, is the philosophy of the Stoic philosophies.
Mhm.
And one of those is this concept of self-denial, actually practicing self-denial. And they talk about this idea of adaptive hedonism. So that when we always are looking for something better and easier, it's a hedonistic behavior that humans have. And the practice is to actually engage in voluntary discomfort so that you can come back and remind yourself of the luxuries you do have. So, simple things like I went to a conference last summer in Toronto, and I had the opportunity and could afford to stay in expensive hotels, but I actually chose to stay in a university residence that was just disgusting. And I didn't have a cup and I didn't have a plate, and I had to figure out how I was going to heat up my tea, and just stupid, silly things that you deny yourself of to remind yourself that you do actually have the choice. And that's a gratitude. Not only do you have luxury, but you have the choice to go back to the luxury. And that has really changed my perspective of what I do have. I just wanted to share. And there's a few other ones. I'll post them on the Facebook. There's 4 of them that that I continue to practice, but it's so easy to get pulled back into the vortex and listen to that roommate.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that and wondered if you've run across the stoic stuff.
I have, and I do have a couple of things to say about that, and people are going to have to decide how to hear this. So there's
sorry, Chad, if you can
I'm going to
unmute
mute.
me,
I will.
then you don't hear
the birds. This is an interesting challenge, and this is why this group is pioneers for me. Many bodies of work, and especially including my own, that I had to toss out. Very useful and effective practices that help things, but I also saw that if you get more sourceful, you can live in a place where they are obsolete and are not needed. And so I got a lot of value from doing what you're saying, Rita, from doing this, going minimal, all of that, the not having that has you be grateful for what they're having, all of that. Absolutely, right? And then I'm going to offer something. There's another spot even beyond that, which is simply living an aligned life, being trued up. See, I actually did this entire body of work, and some people know that I have a body of work. It's about distinguishing that one way of saying human adult behavior is we have one intention, the avoidance of discomfort. Even my not wanting to look like I care about money was avoiding the discomfort of being judged badly by people. Everything's behind it because he's avoiding discomfort. Which then, Mark Twain said, to truly brilliance is to be comfortable with discomfort. There's like a lot of stuff that can go into it, and there's a discipline of discomfort. It's so powerful. And I'm going to say there's something even more powerful, which is just being aligned and being unmovable. So it's not about the comfort, or then it's not about discomfort. Remember I said, let's not make the opposite wrong. It's actually making it irrelevant to me is even a higher space. So when you play the game full out in life, when you play a sport, you play soccer, when you're in the joy of the game, you're no longer chasing the experience. Like I did work to help people achieve results in their life, help them triple their business, this and that, but then they weren't any happier. I go, I feel. So then I got, much smarter. It's not about money and this, it's about having people access the experience of joy and happiness. And then even that got obsolete for me because that was still about chasing an experience. So what I got was when people are in the joy, let's say you're chasing that soccer ball, and some moments you're like, that we lost, or somebody scored on us, or I'm like heaving my guts out, or I'm like victorious. When you're in the joy of the game, you have room for every experience versus trying to avoid certain experiences. And so what happens is it's not about am I comfortable or am I not comfortable? It's am I playing or not? Am I trued up? Am I giving it everything? You know, you have a child, you get up every 2 hours. But it's not because you're pursuing discomfort. It's because the commitment, the joy, the surrender to it gives you a context for all the experience. So I'm going to say that if you get totally trued up and connected to yourself and live from it, life will throw everything at you in the joy of the game. And the thing is, it just will become irrelevant. I have friends who hate getting up early in the morning. They hate being cold. But if there's a foot of fresh snow in Whistler that morning, they will get up at 5 a.m., go out in the cold, put on really uncomfortable ski boots to get the fresh powder. Because in the passion, it becomes irrelevant. The discomfort, and it will take you where it takes you. So I, on one hand, got tremendous value from that, but then for me, it's matured to another space that I'll invite people to consider. The thing is that when you're in it and you surrender to that, so many things that you're focused on right now will become irrelevant. That's my view. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, everybody should come up with their own, but my freedom from that roommate in my head and stuff like that was, I had this distinguishing factor one day after working with a lot of people. I realized, maybe until it's not, normal human condition is that inner dialogue, like blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, as long as you're alive, it's happening, right? That was the insight I got. Then I realized I was sitting there in the kitchen and I heard the fridge was humming, right? And I realized, oh, as long as the fridge is working, it's humming, it's making some noise. As long as I'm alive, I'm making some noise. And I go, oh, but I don't have any problem with the fridge making that noise. And I actually got that if the problem with me is not that I talk to myself, it's that I listen. And as it's normal for the fridge to make noise, as long as it's normal for me to make noise, and if I want, I could sit around and listen to the fridge hum, and that would give me the same, quality of life, like sitting around listening to myself. Actually, probably a better one than if I was listening to myself talk, because I'm more damaging than the fridge. But I actually got that it's no more relevant than the fridge humming. It's just a function of it working. And that freed me up a lot to just go, just the nature of it. And I could, every time I start to get into that, I could go, well, I might as well go sit and listen to the fridge hum, and then I get freed up from it. That's just mine. And I invite people to come up with a way for you that has you catch yourself and then free yourself forward.
Great. Rita, did that address what you wanted to, or is there anything else you want to add? Or James, did you want to add? I saw you shaking your head yes when Rita asked about that book. If there was anything that you wanted to add to that.
The only thing I wanted to add to what you're talking about, Anurag, is our brains have this tendency to, psychologists call it habituation. And basically all that means is that whatever is around you, the brain stops seeing it in the foreground and starts putting it in the background. So if you move into, for example, a gorgeous multi-million-dollar house with pristine views and this, this kind of dream home, you mentioned your client, within, it will make you meaningfully happier for a couple of weeks, that we're clear on. There's like a little blip of kind of pleasure, right, that we get out of it. But by about the month mark, it will feel like it will go from like, wow, this is crazy amazing, to I don't even see this. Like I don't, and your brain does that with everything, especially when it comes to material kind of possessions. And so it's almost like a hedonic, they call it like the hedonic treadmill. So when we pursue, and again, it's particularly true with materialism, but we pursue the things that we assume will give us comfort, over time, the thing, it literally is a treadmill. It's like we can't run fast enough to get the thing we're after. And ultimately, it's what makes us so unhappy. So gratitude, the reason I bring this up is that gratitude is the ultimate antidote for literally stepping off that treadmill. It's the thing that severs the kind of insanity of it and reminds, it actually stops the mind in its tracks and says, oh, this isn't just background. It's what brings it back to the foreground.
Right.
It's what brings it back to right here, like right in front of you. Like, oh my gosh, I have so much to be grateful for. This is amazing. And then because of that, emerging from that place of gratitude is, of course, joy. You know, I'm listening to Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, right now. Mm-hmm. And she talks about how vulnerable, how gratitude is sort of also the antidote for sort of an aversion to vulnerability, where it's sort of, you know, gratitude, you know, in the positive psychology research, gratitude is one of the very most powerful ways to, if you want to see a meaningful increase in your happiness, it's a practice of gratitude. It's not like an attitude of gratitude in this sort of quaint, trite way. It's actually sort of almost like a, you work it into something as a habit. And I would think of it as, you want to tag it to stuff, right? So after you brush your teeth, you write 3 things you're grateful for. It's tag it onto something you're already doing. But people who make it a practice, keep a gratitude journal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but it becomes a way of living, a way of being. And from that place of just feeling of abundance, it puts you off that, gets you off that treadmill and allows you to sit in that place of beauty, being, abundance, connection, and joy.
And just to add to that, James, what you're saying, and to connect what Anurag was saying earlier, is that Anurag, when you're saying you've architected your life right now so that you never go into this place of consuming, right? Because you've set it up so that you have exactly what you need at every moment for the life that you're committed to. And what that does, everyone, is it's very similar. Like I have a friend of mine who's runs a travel business, and he was asking me, how should I distinguish this from all the other travel businesses that are out there? And I said, well, the thing is about travel, when we go to another place, there's nothing predictable. And because there's nothing predictable, our brain is in heightened awareness. And actually what heightened awareness really is presence. You're present to the moment. You're present to the moment in a way that you aren't, James, to the point you're making, when we're pushing everything to the background that we're no longer present to. It could even be a multi-million-dollar home. We're not present to it after a month. It goes into the background. And when we're not present, when we're not able to maintain that presence, we're not conscious. We're unconscious. When you travel, your consciousness is awakened. You are present. The experience that we have of travel, is what I was saying to my friend, is actually not the place you go. Ironically, it's almost irrelevant where you go. It's the being outside of your comfort zone, the predictable, the habituated ways of being, that gives you an experience of presentness and consciousness that is not there when your life is so fixed. And it kind of reminds me of, Anurag, what you and I were talking about, the ice water metaphor. What you have done, by the sounds of it, is you've created a life that never gets a chance to freeze. Mm-hmm. It's always in flow.
Yeah.
Which means you're always present.
Yeah.
Which means you're always in a heightened state of consciousness, which gives you joy and peace and contentment and all these things that people are seeking. It's not the stuff, and it's not even where you go to that gives it to you. It's a state of mind, everyone. It's a brain state.
Yeah, interestingly, Chad, the on the kind of economics of happiness side, what they find is that one of the few things that we spend money on that actually meaningfully for long periods of time does increase our well-being is experiences.
Right.
So if you're going to spend money on something, spend it on experiences. One of the most powerful ones, of course, being travel.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great, because that also maps on a couple of things. One of them is something I was at we had somebody come in and speak about that and about money, and did a really cool exercise with us and asked us to remember from our kids, you know, what toys we has as gifts, and then to remember the places we went to and traveled, right? Mm-hmm. And people could remember so much experience, and we could remember, all I could remember was my bicycle. And for years, I'm sure I got stuff. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it was a really cool exercise. And they said, you know what? With your kids, you want to do something, spend it on experience.
Yeah, totally. That's such a great
exercise. But I saw where it was going, but what happened in the exercise way exceeded where I, you know, the night and day difference was mind blowing. Yeah. And then, you know, two things to just deepen that. There's two exercises that I've done, given people. Well, actually, one was general and one specific, but to go on to that, because the whole thing of uncertainty and exploring and creating. One of them is when I did a lot of work with businesses, I would have CEOs. I would say, okay, you have to go home from work a different way every single day. And they're like, that's like so stupid, what a pain in the ass. And 2 or 3 days later, like, this is so cool. I didn't even know. I didn't know it was here. No one in my neighborhood. And because the whole thing is, you can drive, you know, a 2,000 kilogram vehicle at 100 kilometers an hour, not remember the drive, right? Like, because you just do it unconsciously all the time. And having to do it new has you be present, and it changes everything. It was just an exercise in exactly that, being present. Mm. And the other one was actually also somebody that was coaching they wanted to create an adventure travel company, where they want to do, like, you go here and you paddle and you cycle and you hike, right? And they were like laying it all out. And I said, no. I said, at least half of the places that you're going to stay, don't put them up on your thing. But people want to know, I said, don't care, don't do it. Surprise and discovery is the magic. And tell people if they want to come and want surprise and magic, great. And if they need to know, then they don't. Because today, this is in the modern world, they look at it, they look it up online, they look at it, they look at every detail, they create up their expectations. And then when they show up, they judge it against their expectations. And said, no, literally build in surprise, literally build in discovery. Because the real magic happens there. So yeah, just to reinforce that, and I'll tell you a little about some of the things that I've done.
It's also.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, James.
You know, it's also, Anurag, that place of discovery and heightened attention that you're saying as well, Chad, is, again, and I alluded to this, I think, a couple of weeks back, but it's the increased levels of attention that basically signal to the brain, hey, this is important. Mm-hmm. Note. Mm-hmm. And when the brain believes that, it's like you're sending up a flag, like, hey, this is important. Then suddenly your brain is like, oh, it actually activates all of the neuroplasticity processes. That's why we remember it so well, those experiences, is because we're literally, it's almost like we revert back to like the level of neuroplasticity that we had when we were kids. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like the acetylcholine starts pumping, all the stuff that needs to be happening. BDNF is pulsing, like all the basic like biological and chemical processes that need to happen to kickstart those neuroplasticity switches on are happening. And so we're learning at just like this, we're like sponges again. We're like kids again when we travel. Mm. And so again, that's attention is really the gate that opens up and signals to the brain, hey, start the neuroplasticity because this is important. Mm.
Cool.
Rita, you just posted something. Would you like me to just read it out, or would you like to come off of mute and ask James a question? I'll just take you. There, I took
sorry.
you off.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's just, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm just listening and absorbing it all because there's another sort of theoretical basis behind what is called the zone of proximal development. I don't know if anybody has heard of that. We use it in teaching. And the reason that I think it's relevant to this group is the way it's described is we have this little core, and that's our comfort zone. And there's a zone outside of that we go to a little bit and then run back because it's just a little bit too uncomfortable. We keep going back and forth between comfort and discomfort. And in a community, what we can do for one another is provide what is called scaffolds, where we help each other just reach that next level of discomfort until you're comfortable there. And that zone gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that's got a neurological base to it too. That's what I wondered if, I can see Anurag nodding, but I wondered if James had heard of that.
Yeah, we used to use this a lot. So Lev Vygotsky, very famous Russian social psychologist, came up with this model, and it's to your point, Rita, it's right on target, for what it means to be in the optimal learning space. Because if you go to the third level of what Rita is talking about is really the panic zone, or you can push too far beyond that stretch zone. And what happens in the brain is it just shuts down because it starts protecting itself, because it's literally kind of too much. And so there is a sweet spot of scaffolding. Rita said it perfectly. There's a sweet spot of pushing beyond that comfort zone and staying in that comfort zone, and then or staying in that learning zone, and then once you really do get comfortable, then yes, you do expand it further, but it is in these incremental scaffolded steps that is sort of the optimal way to grow. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Rita. It's a perfect.
And this is why our perception of what is real is so deceptive for us. It's we experience it as real, but it's really just an illusion. And it's only when you realize that you've pushed through that level of discomfort or that level of risk, and you've got on the other side of it, and you survive, and you look back like Anurag, I think of my last year and the shit that I've gone through, and I'm thinking 10 or 15 years ago, it would have killed me.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have had the ability to manage it.
Yeah.
Or at least that was the story I was telling myself.
Yeah.
That was the perception of reality. That was the illusion that I had of myself.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, well, I can't necessarily pay homage to the neuroscience behind it. All of my work has been just like trial and error with people. And the thing that Rita and James, you're talking about, I in my own work, I just call it gradient management. And I don't know who said this, but somebody said this thing, and I read it a long time ago, and it stuck with me. And he said, average for everybody means perfect for nobody. And it's important for me also to remember that people created most of the stuff that is anything from constraining to damaging today. People did not have an evil intention. The idea of creating an average was to make things more efficient. However, the average pair of pants will fit very few people. It's not so for me, with the pioneers, developing a methodology that, while is universal in its in its relevance, we design it in a way that everybody can find their own gradient. Just like we wouldn't put too heavy a weight on somebody in the gym.
Right.
And I'm going to share my favorite example of this, because in the work that I've done over many years, it shouldn't be possible to happen this fast. But I had a business client in this is about 8 years ago, maybe, I don't know, doesn't matter. In London, in the UK, I was going over there once a month. And come June, he said, listen, my 16-year-old daughter is going to come and work in the company office. And, and I told her that how we work with you and that you help each one of us have breakthroughs and stuff like that. And she wants one. I said, okay, well, what? Well, so you have to get this. This is a 16-year-old girl. And she's like so kind of like shy and afraid to talk on the phone. She won't even talk to her girlfriends on the phone. Like that's how much she's like just that, like a 16-year-old girl won't even talk to her girlfriends on the phone. She said, well, she can see that's very, I don't know the word, debilitating, that's my word, but whatever she said, right? And so here's what we did. And so she wants to learn to work on the phone in the office, like she wants the breakthrough. So we started off with a very, very good relationship with her father, very at ease. So we took on the call she would have to a potential outgoing client and sat down and did it with her dad, which she had a somewhat awkwardness, not with her dad, but with the material, right? And we just had her do it over and over and over again till almost ad nauseum she could like do it, you know, and make faces with her dad, right? Like just do it. Then we had her do it with her dad's business partner, Leon, who's a very good friend of the family. We're like, she likes him a lot, just a little bit further away than her dad, just a little gradient, right? And then do it over and over and over again with him. Then the same thing with another person in the office that she didn't really know that well, therefore adding a little liquid of awkwardness, right? And then over and over again. Then we had her do a client that they had already, who's a really good person, and said, hey, would you be willing to do this for my daughter? The guy said yes. And so another level of fear or confront, but, you know, just manageable. Each time doing it until there was like no charge. So you just do it like blindfold, right? Then go to this and go to that. In 2 weeks, 10 working days, she came in lit up and jazzed about doing cold calls when even the experienced people were still reserved about it.
Wow.
But in 10 days, by the way, I didn't expect it was going to produce that so quickly because I worked in transformation long and I know that level of fear takes blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I believe we don't know anything. I would not even have set that as a goal. But it is really, for me, it's just my favorite example because it was so unpredictable. But literally what did it was what I call gradient management, scaffolding, that little thing. You know, I can see now what you talk about in the neuroplasticity and that repetition, you know, James, like it's coming together for me now. That's what I love about this. But I would not have coached. I would have not have said that was going to happen. Right? Like she went from like, I can't talk to my girlfriends to I'm more lit up about doing cold calls than the experienced callers.
Yeah, and to that, Rita, you said it. So that I'm hearing what you're saying, Anurag, as a perfect example of what Rita is describing as scaffolding. That's what scaffolding is that sort of gradient. Yeah,
style. And having that community around her, as Rita said, was essential because it created the space for that, right? And that's why, you know, Chad talks about it. This for us is not a course, it's not a training. It's a community that we're building that is working at, you know, as a community, taking on living a particular way. For me, the end game is community. And for all of us, I mean like that. And, you know, and I'm going to go back to that. What I say is to take on gratitude, clean up your life and do the right thing now every moment. And connecting it to this. Yes. At one hand, do it to the appropriate gradient for you. On the other hand, as Chad says, your perception is not reality. In this particular area, I can promise you, you are capable of more than you think. You are capable of doing the right thing now and taking some uncertainty and some consequences. So don't sell out on yourself. Don't make the gradient small for your own comfort. Right? You know, having said that, you know, that we talked about gradients, it's totally appropriate. It's totally appropriate. And at the same time, look deep inside yourself and get that trust of self because, you know, you really can do the right thing right now. And the cool thing about doing the right thing every moment, clean up, like, is that it does lead to uncertainty. So it leads to that surprise and discovery because it's going to take you places that your consuming mind won't take you because it's all about safety and fear. And you will start to have some of that childlike existence again in life. It is possible. The great thing about children is they know so little, so they have to discover how it turns out. Remember, you wouldn't play a sport, you know, watch a movie, you already knew how it was going to turn out. You wouldn't play it, you wouldn't watch that game, you know, you wouldn't like people go, no, don't tell me what happens in Game of Thrones. Like, don't tell me, like, because you want, right? Because just remember that.
Yeah, the huge hindrance is the belief that we know something. It's like I love that Socratic quote, I know nothing. Because I'm infuriated, you know, the courts in Athens because Socrates was supposed to be the wisest man and he's like, I know nothing.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But what we think we know is the very thing that stops us from living our life. And actually we don't know shit about it.
Yeah.
It's all made up.
Yep.
So with that, everyone, we're at the 90-minute mark. I'm going to be posting into the Facebook group the practices for this week. Let's take them on and share our experience as normal in the group, and see how things shift for you as you take these on. Okay, so I'll be posting that later today. Watch for that. In the meantime, remember that we're back here again for another workshop next week. And if you celebrate Christmas, have a Merry Christmas. If you don't, enjoy the downtime with friends and family, whatever you're doing. But we'll see you guys next week.
See you.